Hey, what's good, Econ fam? Mr. DeWitt back with another EU Instructional Strategies Breakdown. Today we'll be discussing the production possibilities curve. Econ is supposed to be hard. Why allow it to be hard? Follow me. Let's get it. Alright, so the production possibilities curve, it compares two items, always two items. Now, the purpose of the production possibilities curve is to measure the production points or possible production points for each of these two items. Now, it shows this on a graph, just like we've talked about before. All econ graphs are L-shaped. They are in quadrant 1. So sticking with this concept, let's go ahead and get into it a little bit more. So if you look at this slide here, we're comparing two items. In this case, we're comparing watches and we're comparing purses. Now, notice your L-shaped graph. L-shaped graph is quadrant 1, right? So our two items, watches on y-axis, purses on the x-axis. Now, let's go ahead and plot these points that you see in our schedule. We call this T-chart over here a schedule. The first point, when 50 watches are created, there's going to be 0 purses created because you're spending all your time and effort creating watches. Now, let's suppose that we're going to start to produce some purses while at the same time we are also going to make watches. So in this case, if I make 40 watches, that allows me to make 10 purses. So that's represented by point B. Suppose that I want to make 30 watches and 20 purses. That's represented by point C. The next point, point D, that represents 20 watches and 30 purses. And as follows, the last point, point E, that represents 10 watches and 40 purses. Now, the thing to get from this, in econ, whenever you want to produce more of an item, there's a trade-off or an opportunity cost associated with that notion, right? That idea. So if I want to make more purses, that means I have to give up some watches. All right, so let's continue with this. Any point located along the curve or line represents efficiency. So all of these green points, so points A, B, C, D, and E are all equivalent. They all represent efficiency. That's a good thing. That's where businesses want to produce. That means they're utilizing their resources, their workers, their capital, all their investments, their time. They're using everything efficiently, allowing them to produce the items efficiently on that curve, right? Now, is it a good thing if this company produces 20 watches and 10 purses? So, it's definitely not a good thing. Anything produced inside of that curve, where that red dot is a bad thing. That means you're utilizing your resources inefficiently. That means workers aren't producing to the best of their capabilities. Supervisors aren't getting their workers in good positions to earn profit. So something's lacking in the production process. Therefore, you're using your resources inefficiently. All right, so any of these red points inside of the curve is a bad thing. Remember, all of those red dots represent inefficient points of production. So if you're producing watches or purses and you're in the red inside of that curve, that is a bad thing, using your resources inefficiently. Is it possible for this company to produce 40 watches and 40 purses? No. And the reason why is because this company, although they want to produce at that point, they can't with their current resources. Remember, resources are limited, so therefore they want to get to that point eventually, but right now they cannot produce at that point. That is an unattainable or impossible point to produce at right now. It's kind of like a goal point. You want to get there, but we just can't get there right now with our current resources. So all of these purple dots represent impossible points. We cannot produce at any one of those points, not right now, not with our given resources. But that is our goal point. Eventually, we want to get to the point where we're able to produce at that point. All right, so what would be the opportunity cost? Here we go with that term, opportunity cost. Remember, opportunity cost means you have to give something up in order to get something, right? You can't have everything. We discussed this. Resources are limited, so therefore we have to make choices. We got to make decisions. Remember, opportunity cost is your next best option that you gave up on. It's what your decision cost you, the thing that you missed out on. Now, what would be the opportunity cost of switching production from point B? And let's kind of review this real quick. Point B, if you look at the graph, point B, that's where 40 watches are being produced and 10 purses are being produced. So that's where we started. That's where they are producing currently. But we're about to switch. This company is going to switch production and produce a different amount of these items. So the question says we're switching from point B to point D. Now let's look at point D. Point D, this company's making 20 watches and 30 purses. So what did they gain by making this switch? They gained more purses, right? But that's not the opportunity cost. Remember, opportunity cost is what did they have to give up to gain those extra purses? What did that cost them? So if you look, that means that at point B, they were producing 40 watches, but now at point D, they're only producing 20 watches. So how many watches did it cost them to make more purses? It cost them 20 watches, right? So 20 watches would be your opportunity cost. All right, so I have some practice questions for you to go through these. Now, I'm going to pause the video. You should go ahead and pause the video at this particular point and go through these 4 questions. So number 1, what would be the result of producing 20 watches and 40 purses? Remember, there's only 3 possibilities. You're either producing efficiently, inefficiently, or it's an impossible or unattainable point, right? One of those 3, efficient, inefficient, unattainable. Number 2, and you have to figure out these. Number 2, what would be the result of producing 10 watches and 20 purses? Same situation, one of those 3, efficient, inefficient, impossible, or unattainable. Question 3, what is the opportunity cost of switching production from point E to point C? All right, so I'm going to let you work through these, and then we're going to go through these. All right, so pause your video so you don't hear the answers, so you can get the answers, and then we will go from there. Ready? 3, 2, 1, pause. All right, so now I'm going to go over the answers. Number 1, what would be the result of producing 20 watches and 40 purses? That is an unattainable point. If you notice the purple dot, it's outside of the production possibilities curve. So that means that we cannot get there right now with our given resources. What would be the result of producing 10 watches and 20 purses? Number 2, this point is an inefficient point, right? Because it's inside of the curve. That is very bad for businesses. They do not want to produce in that area because they're wasting resources. All right, number 3, what is the opportunity cost of, let's see what we have here, going from point E to point C? Now, if you look at point E, 40 purses, point C, 20 purses. So they gave up 20 purses in that decision. All right, number 4, going from point A to point E. Once again, at point A, they were making 50 watches. At point E, they're only making 10 watches, right? They're gaining more purses and able to make more purses, but they had to give up a lot of watches to do so. Your job is to find out how many watches, right? So they went from producing 50 watches to 10 watches, so the opportunity cost is 40 watches. That's what they had to give up to produce more purses. All right, so I hope this video really helped you guys in terms of the production possibilities curve. Until next time, peace.